I'm going to eat lunch at 2 o'clock, so we can talk now. Just because there's a lot of information. So, does anyone tell me why you want to have a backup strategy? Anybody? So one answer is who needs backups? Anyone want to give me a reason why you need a backup strategy? Job security. How about your business actually, operating as a business and not going bankrupt? So.
We need money.
Yeah. We talked, I showed you a slide here which is like what not to do with copy. This is the most, but I'm going to start very basic with this. This is what you do with copy. You shut down your database. You copy your data. Now, assuming it's a simple configuration with just files in the data directory. Now, InnoDB, you put files elsewhere and so forth. So, then you can expand that a little bit. You make sure you always copy your configuration file with your backup, because it does affect particularly InnoDB. And you start up your database. Very simple. The problem is that if your application uses that database, then your application isn't going to work, because the database is not available. And if you use memory tables, then be aware that it does not copy the data into memory tables, because it's copying from disk.
Is there a way to get those memory tables to come back before you do?
We'll cover memory tables in 1 minute.
Actually, there's another disadvantage there. You cold start when you start like that. Right. All your caches are flush. And if you're using InnoDB with a big buffer pool.
This is more about if you're just doing a backup.
But you have disadvantages?
No, disadvantages of this backup strategy, not disadvantages of recovery. Recovery is a separate step.
No, that's cold start after you back up.
Oh,
you start the same instance and you start at cold.
Why can't you preload everything?
That's another memory type issue, right?
No, you got memory.
No, just for InnoDB caches, migration caches.
Cold restart as
I was saying, like, this is stuff that's not.
After the database has been up for 4 days and basically the cache is perfect, then you shut it down and lose it all.
Why can't you preload?
That's a good guess. I'm saying.
How much time does it take to sync the caches?
Sorry?
But how much time would it take for you to fire off all the queries to populate the cache?
Quite some time.
Anyway.
Sorry, time out. I just want to cover like 16 slides because then we cover the gamut of backup and recovery. So the way you get around the problem of not shutting down your instance is to use the syntax flush table with read lock, which will take a read lock on every table in every database of your instance.
Not true. You will close all tables and it won't allow any more to do with it.
Okay, doesn't mean you can't create any new ones.
But it doesn't actually require a lock on machine.
Doesn't?
No. There's a single global flag that says the server's read only.
Okay. So, the internal way is what Jeremy said.
But it's a big difference in performance. It's not cycle through all the tables and try to lock them. It's actually and then set that flag.
Right. So the issue with this is in a high write environment, it can take a long time to do a flush. Okay. Then you can do I say you can do a copy or an SCP or an RC and copy the configuration file. And this is where generally people do an LVM snapshot. This is the minimum that you do for a snapshot. However, I will discuss the pros and cons of doing flush versus not doing flush. In fact, we'll let Farhan talk about that next session. And then once you've done the work, you unlock the tables. So it looks really good here in bullet point form on the slides, but realise that running commands in the MySQL database session and running commands in the file system are two different things. So the script is more complicated than just 5 bullet points. Because you've got to flush, wait till the flush finishes, then kick off a copy or a sync, then unlock the table. So just be aware of that. And depending on your environment, disadvantages can take a long time. If you have an application, the database is up, but the database is not going to give you back any capabilities to write. So, the application could think it could just sort of freeze up. And you see websites where they like freeze up at midnight for a minute or two, because they're doing a warm backup. You can also do a warm backup with MySQL dump. And I'm going to talk about this with not InnoDB and then with InnoDB in a minute. What it does is it dumps an ANSI standard, it dumps not actually ASCII, it's a text dump. Someone corrected me on that. It's a text dump of rerunnable SQL statements. You can configure what you want to dump, which gives you an advantage. I think it works well to 5 gigabytes. People keep saying it works well to 5 to 20 gigabytes. I don't necessarily agree with that. It depends on how fast your disk is.
Define works well.
It works well. It works well for recovery time.
What you said the caveat is, have you ever seen it happen or have you seen it fail?
It doesn't fail, it takes a very long time.
It just takes longer to run.
Right, well, but you also want to know why you're doing it. If
So it
you,
works well. Webs would say works timely. How does that sound? Is that
yeah,
works timely.
because MySQL dump is perfect if you want to get part of your data back. You know, if
Yeah,
somebody loses a piece of their information and says, "Can you get it for me?" and you say yes, I mean, it's
Yeah.
perfectly appropriate for that, and you don't want something like a snapshot.
Yeah. So
There are
the
other
whole
ways.
point about being configuring at
Yeah.
the database table or schema level, and I'll talk about exactly Sherry's point on the next slide. The database has to be up. The good advantage about MySQL dump is that you're working in mixed topologies of operating systems, like developers are using Windows and your test servers are production on Linux. Don't do that to start with, but let's say that they are. MySQL dump works well for like backing up the data, and it does dump memory tables, I believe. Now, why you want to dump memory tables? I'm not going to discuss the reasons pros and cons, but it will actually extract the SQL that are there. And you can dump all tables and lock tables in one go. However, I recommend doing two things. If you use MySQL dump, always dump out the schema by itself. In addition to the data, just create the schema version and the data version. And then if you have multiple databases, multiple schema users for your data, dump them individually. And one reason for dumping them individually is that you can restore them in parallel. If they're in one file, you can only restore them serially.
So you need per database per user?
Well, per
Who's the,
database, in MySQL terminology, a database refers to a schema user. So it's like per database. So
if you dump them in parallel.
I don't know if you can dump them in parallel, but if you dump them, if you're dumping them in parallel, you get this potentially inconsistency if you're doing data across different database schemas. So there's all these pros and cons of how you separate your data. And once we start talking about scale out, you hit all those problems. There's MySQL hot copy. I'm not going to spend much time talking about that. We just want MySQL and only. Let's talk about hot copy.
Can we rename that to MySQL.com?
Whatever. So one of the things is that you want a hot backup. There are several ways to do a hot backup in brackets, quotes. One way is that all your tables are on IDB, so Jeremy will say this is an advantage of having all IDB tables as well. You can do MySQL dump, which will give you a version snapshot of all your data, which doesn't take any locking, doesn't take any locks on your tables. Where if you're doing a MySQL dump before of MySQL tables, then you lock the table, so you're actually getting a lock against the table, so it actually holds up.
How does that work?
It uses the MVCC to actually create a separate version of, basically it's reading the data in a version snapshot. So it's using the multi-versioning capabilities, which is why in 5.1 other transactional engines. And how's Paul? Paul, where are you, Paul? So how's PBXT going to work with MySQL dump single transaction? Is it going to give you a multi-version backup?
You automatically just do a single transaction and that would help.
So other storage engines will start supporting this, being able to back up hot online in theory. And so when I say here, like again, the 5 to 20 gigabytes, it's just because the time it takes to write the backup file, the time it takes to recover it. Now you go, okay, it's a single version, that's fine. But for the duration of you having those extra data pages open for do that versioning, if you're doing more inserts into those pages or more updates or more deletes or more index changes, it has to then apply all those when your backup is finished. So,
That's not true.
a separate version it is.
There's no limitation that there can only be over.
It'll actually just count the read version.
It's not so much that there's extra work when you release the transaction, it's that it's not cleaning up those pages while the transaction is running.
Yes.
So if
So it's
the
more
page
of a-
is changed and the new page is written, but the old one can't be cleaned up until the oldest transaction using it is it's gone.
So it's actually more work to clean up the pages which are being held in buffer pool size.
Yeah, you're just deferring that work while you're backing up. Basically, you're doing less work on the maintenance side of things while the transaction is running, and you have to
Less
then
disk
do that
work.
work later. So.
Less disk work, because it's still working more in memory.
Correct, but you're not deferring actual writes so much, you're deferring cleanup.
Sure. So that's okay, but the problem with InnoDB and MySQL is it's giving you an SQL file that has SQL statements that you replay one at a time. InnoDB, InnoBase, which is the company, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Oracle, I like to say that, has a commercial product which basically allows you to do backups. I've never used it, but my understanding is that it actually provides a tablespace formatted backup version in terms of like, it does a snapshot and then builds that up so there's like a consistent tablespace backup. And
Why haven't you ever seen it? Is it open source?
no, it's a commercial offering. It's a commercial offering that has a dollar figure to it.
It's not a very big dollar figure. It's not a very big dollar figure, and there's a free script that you can download that actually does the manual backup of FRM files and actually does the MyISOM backup as well. What?
700, I believe, for
Nope.
a named license.
Nope,
$2,000
it's
for
it's like €390, which is like $500 for 1 year, and it's like $1,700 for perpetual. And if you want support, it's more money.
So that's perpetual per server. So it does have advantages. It, it can work. It just costs money. And some organisations will say it will save their bacon. But just be aware that if you don't use the extra script to back up the FRM files,
And the MyISOM table spaces.
and MyISOM tables, this is like just using InnoDB. If you have like a mixed topology, you've got to have like 2 backup strategies to cover both of them. Is that a... Oh, that's just true. So this is all cool because the way that I describe this to people is MySQL has no single one unbreakable backup strategy. Being honest. I like being honest. Salesperson in the room, up. Salesperson, let's play salesperson.
Over here. That was just the gap thing that you've been throwing at me.
Oh, okay, you threw it back. The reason why I'm worried is because we were out last night and someone threw a rock, whatever it was, got me on the side of the head. Hey, who was there and who felt my pain? They're like, someone at least admits that happened. In 6.0, or aka 5.2, Jay can ask a question later with the difference between 5.2 and 6.0.
I'd like to refer to it as Neverland.
Jeremy down the front, I'm thinking the microphone. Jeremy down the front is an eternal pessimist. Is that the right word to use? He has some good things to say some of the time. So 6.0 is slated for the online backup. It is extremely long overdue by about 4 or 5 years. And it's supposed to do all these things, and it's supposed to be able to do it from a simple prompt where you just go backup, and it'll create a backup checkpoint file, well not really check point, a backup file, and then it allows you to restore it. And there are, from the marketing team, working examples of this with Falcon and 5.2. And has anyone else of the MySQL people here, and this is probably 3 of us, has anyone actually used it? Have you actually used it? I mean, I've downloaded it to try it, but I haven't actually used it.
I heard it's useless.
I haven't even bothered with 5.2.
So if we have time today, I have the latest 5.2. We can like download it, load up, as much gigabytes just so I can have on my hard drive, and we can try it. But anyway, so that's the plan. The 6.2, 6.0 will be an online backup. So when 6.0 doesn't get released for a while, which Jerry will go, I told you so, it'll be because of...
You remember that almost that exact same slide, except it said 4.0 instead of 6.0? Yeah, back in the day.
Before you go on, the link at the bottom is actually a very good link.
Right.
If you're interested in what's going on with the online backup, the online backup team has put some very good documentation up on the Forge Wiki about what it's all about, what they're working on, and what they need input from you guys on. So if you're interested in this, I would highly recommend going in and editing the wiki page and letting them know about features that you wanted to do and what are your questions about and that kind of thing. So they've done a pretty fantastic job, in my opinion, of mapping out what their vision for the online backup is.
And note he used the word vision, and I'll also add the fact that This is an API, which means it'll provide a level of how the backup works, and then dependent on storage engine implementation.
The wiki's out of date though, it says it's in 5.2.
It is,
We do it in 5.2.
not 6.2. 5.2. Okay, for those of you who don't know, which is most of everyone in here, including some of the MySQL folks, Falcon is the new storage engine that we're coming out with, right? Falcon is quite a bit delayed at this point. But to get testing, not but some folks at MySQL have split so that 6.0 is an alpha preview of the Falcon storage engine. But it does not include online backup, self-query optimizations, and
Something else. I always get the same one. Isn't there more after things or?
something. Anyway, the main things are online backup and a lot of
self-query
self-query optimizations. That's in 5.2. You can download 6.0 Falcon preview from the mysql.com download page, but you cannot download 5.2.
You used to be able to. You gotta know
You
what it
used
is.
to be able to. Now you've got to go search for it somewhere or use BitKeeper. However,
It's on the FTP
the
website.
plan is that, so 6.0, here's 6.0 Falcon, right? And 5.2 is self-query optimizations. The work on online backup and self-query optimizations is actually further along than Falcon. When Falcon catches up, they will be merged together, and that will be 6.0. But that probably will not be going on for at least 3 to 4 months.
So there's no plan to release 5.2?
5.2 will never be released.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Robin pretty much told me it will never be
Yeah,
released.
I wouldn't say that.
It will be merged into 6.0.
But
That's
it's merged, but that doesn't mean it won't get.
from what I know.
So in 4 months we'll get 6.0.
Say again.
In 4-5 months we'll get 6.0. That's all.
As far as I know, the plan is to merge 5.2 into 6.0,
After the alpha release.
and then 6.0 will have Falcon, online backup, and self-query optimizations. Right now, Falcon is separate in 6.0, and online backup and self-query optimizations is in 5.2. Once the two trees stabilize enough so that they can play well together, they'll merge them together, and 6.0 will be those three main features. But right now, to test online backup, you have to use the 5.2 BitKeeper stuff, and to test Falcon, you have to download the tarball for 6.0. So it's a real pain in the butt, but that's the way to think about it.
You had a question? Yeah. So,
Yeah, so if you would go to, is there like a main MySQL, sorry, I came a little late. Is
Yeah,
there
that's
a
fine.
main MySQL website you would go to, and what version would you get if you went there?
okay, so let's have a quick chat about versions. So at mysql.com, when you go to the products page, when you go, this is important, there are no SaaS people in the room, so I can say this. When you go to you have to edit this.
This will be edited out. Most of this 5.2, 6.0 will be probably
No,
edited
that's
out.
okay. I mean, that's not. When you go to the products page, the most important link is not actually on here, which is the link that every one of you guys will use, which will be download the community version of MySQL. It's not there. You have to download the enterprise version.
You can go to community.
Yeah, if you go to community, or if you actually on the home, actually the other thing is you go to home page. If you go to the home page, back to the home page and just go straight down into downloads, you can get a choice of downloading the community version or the enterprise version. So MySQL now in general availability GA is 5.0. That's what you want to download. Unless you purchase a subscription, you would download the community version. 5044 maybe. 46. No, oh sorry, I'm thinking of wrong numbers. 45. This will be. Where is it? This is 5045 for community. For enterprise, it's 5046. But MySQL also has 5.1, which is currently in beta, soon to be a release candidate.
Or as we like to say, beta.
Jeremy, can you give me something to throw at Jay, please?
Jeremy agrees with me.
Jeremy's my friend now, you can't have him. So 5.1 is there, so you can download 5.1 because 5.1 does have cool features. some of which still have bugs in them. Well, actually everything has bugs in them, but things like partitioning is apparently very stable. People use 5.1 partitioning in production. People want 5.1 for this cluster-to-cluster row-based replication, which I will shoot down in flames later in the cluster talk. And then correspondingly there is 6.0, which is Falcon. Now, there is also 5.2, and 5.2 used to be downloadable, and if you go looking hard enough, you will find it. But it's all I will say about 5.2.
When is the time schedule? When do they expect 6.0 to be finished?
Well, at the moment, we're looking at 5.1 in beta. And 5.1 will move from beta to release candidate 1, major release candidate 2, and then production. So that's a more important question to ask. When will that happen? Anyone got an answer they'd like to give? Soon.
5.1's approaching.
Approaching release candidate. That's 5.1. So 6.0, there's been an alpha release. There is an impending second alpha release, which was slated that time has now passed. And then it'll go through beta and will get released sometime next year. I'd be confident in saying on the record it's not going to be early in the year, it's more likely to be later in the year. But I'm just saying that without actually having any basis of information other than the historical release path of MySQL. And I could be in trouble, I could lose my job over that. So.
Not recording.
No.
Will stored procedures use the query cache?
Will stored procedures use the query cache?
I can tell you that.
Yeah, okay. I was going to talk about prepared statements. What's that? Not soon.
Not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, yeah.
Prepared statements are finally fixed.
In 5.1.
5.1.12.
I
They
think it's later than that.
fixed the problem where prepared statements weren't put into the query cache. Well, if you use a prepared statement, the query cache is null and void for select.
You don't run query cache and prepared statements together.
And by the way, I do have it from engineering that they will not fix that for 5.0. So if you're using prepared statements in a read-heavy environment where the query cache can come into some good benefit, and you're using prepared statements, and you're in 5.0, you should use
What did you say? You shouldn't?
shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, you shouldn't use query cache. You should have a query cache.
Use memcache.
Yeah, or use memcache. But yeah, the query cache and prepared statements, or you can use, if you're a PHP person, you can use emulated prepared statements into PDO driver in 5.1.13.
You'll talk about
The
that.
PDO driver version is not MySQL.
You can do the same thing in Java.
Yeah.
You can force the connector J to do emulated prepared statements.
Yeah, so use service like prepared statements.
What's that book?
We talked about backup and we said like there's no one consistent backup. What do people do in most large scale environments? And the general consensus is people will back up from a replication slave or they won't do backup at all. It's a popular approach and some other people here might have better experiences. However, the biggest problem I have with using replication to backup is there's no way to guarantee your slave is consistent. And we'll talk about this more in replication.
By any means consistent with the master.
Yep, there's no guaranteed way to know that the master database is the same as the slave database. Transactions are not synchronous, transactions will get lost, all these sorts of things. But people use this as an acceptable means in a community 2.0 environment.
Right, and let's also be clear that that's for like a disaster recovery kind of a backup. Because if you have deleted information and you're trying to restore something from 2 days ago, replication isn't going to help you. Or if your database got corrupted and
Replication is not going to help you, but replication won't help you. However, I don't have it in here. However, a delayed replication will help you.
well, depending on if you know it's going to be X days ago. I mean,
Did I pass by it? I didn't think.
there it is.
Yeah. So, Paul Tuckfield mentioned this for YouTube, and you've got to caveat this with how beneficial it is, but the principle of actually having a slave that's n hours or a day behind sounds good in theory, but you know, what benefit is it? I mean, if someone deletes data in production and it gets replicated to slaves, then you could get that data back. But what does that mean in production? Can you stop your production database and restore this data, or can the system work with that data and give it back in? There's all of these sort of caveats. However, it is an interesting topic to have a slave which is a certain number of hours behind. And there's no easy way to do it. You got to script it. Anyway, very good.
Is that just back for like recovering from somebody who does a bad query?
That's when someone doing stupid like going delete from tables, and that's where you use the I am a dummy option. I'm not joking, I'm dead
Wait, does
serious.
that really exist?
That really exists. It
Yeah,
really
the
exists.
state updates for I am a dummy.
Yeah, so in MySQL, I'll get to the question in just a sec. In MySQL, there is an option called,
The command line client.
yeah, the MySQL client, yeah. I am a dummy. And in actual fact, there's no reason why you don't turn this on, even for experienced DBAs. So what it means is that you can't execute a delete or an update without a where clause, I think in summary.
That doesn't help when my CTO does a delete from table where ID minus value.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help stupid. So this is another thing. Never let a CTO work on your product. Never let any SQL access on your production server. Give them a slave. If they destroy the slave, you say, it'll get restored tomorrow night, go away and come back.
Would it block you from deleting from a temporary? It'll block everything.
You can always do
My
our
question was, even if the slave is out of sync with the master, if you try to use a slave to recover, can you do that and then have it play back the rest of it to be up to date with the master?
Yeah, we'll talk about that now.
Okay.
You're jumping ahead of me, Jay. So as soon as I can work out how to pull up my slides in full screen mode, like you just. So the issue with all the backups we just talked about is it's a static backup. It's a backup at a point in time. So what's important is you have to use binary logging to enable point-in-time recovery. If you do a backup at midnight and the system crashes now at 2:02 p.m., you lose the data for the whole day. Is that acceptable?
They're in the manual as well.
Then that's good, then don't worry about binary logging because it slows down. But generally it's not. So you have to turn on binary logging, which is an option called logbin, which spews out a whole pile of files by default in your data directory based on, file name, which is like MySQL -bin dot sequential numbers and a .index file. What binary logging does is it records every successful statement. Now there is some conjecture about definition of success. We won't discuss that right now. But if you do update tables, set ID, set salary equals salary times 1.1, give everyone a 10% raise, then it records that one line, which is really cool. If you have 1 million records in your table, then you're just getting one statement replicated. In 5.1, they have row-based replication, which replicates the actual data, what the data value is going to be. And I haven't played with it, but it's sort of like then, the amount of data that's being replicated is the actual data, not the statement. So this will improve consistency because if you have that statement, which is like update, employee set salary equals salary times 1.1, it'll run on the master. It may run on the slave, it may not run on the slave. There could be a reason why it doesn't run, for some, runs out of space or whatever like that. But it might not apply the same number of rows. If you have 1 million employees in the master, but only 500,000 employees in the slave because someone deleted 500,000 employees, the statement will run, it will finish successfully, and it'll go, I'm happy. So therefore, there's no guarantee that if you update something on the master, you get the same update on the slave. Because underlying data can be different.
I mixed mode, you mean you can get both?
Yeah, apparently in 5.1 you can do both. I don't know how we use it. Anyone want to comment?
What I've heard or what I've read it does, because I haven't heard anything, it will do statement-based replication if the rows are the same.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken, but I think the mixed mode is predominantly for combating the problem with temp tables and replication. Where the temp table could be different in a single session, and I think that's how originally started out, because temp tables in certain sessions on the slave could be different.
I thought it started out because of the engine for cluster implementation.
Also, probably
And also non-deterministic queries and also different transaction isolation levels as well.
Needs for all kinds of things.
I mean,
so it exists.
row-based replication is a hit because you're going to for the most part, you're probably going to be sending more data across the wire than if you used statement-based replication. But the point is to correct the fact that you might not have the same data in both tables.
Sure.
Yeah, it really depends. Most modern applications, though, any given update is likely only touching one row. So
Yes, but if somebody goes in and change it, well, yeah, I mean,
if the user changing something in a profile, something like that,
yeah, no, you're
touches
right.
one row. So whether you replicate the statement or replicate the underlying data doesn't really matter.
Not only that, it only be touching one column. So.
Correct, but you'll still replicate the whole change. Yeah.
Hey, join MySQL and write a better replication. Adrian, do you have a question?
Do the bin logs need to be deleted manually?
Okay, I'll talk about that in 2 slides. So when you do binary logging, you can choose what you want to back up, so you can back up particular databases or ignore particular databases. Replication, we'll discuss pros and cons of that.
There's no way to manage specific tables within a database?
Not to enable binary logging, but in terms of reloading them in replication, in the slave you can, but not in a binary log, but only relay logs.
Correct. No, not in a binary.
No, the binary log is just database level granularity.
Just make the slave table a black hole engine.
Yeah, or use black hole. That's another discussion. Moving right along. Question which was answered here is, how do you manage those log files? There are 2 ways. You can manage them manually with purge logs, or you can manage them automatically with expire logs and A's as an option. Okay, that's a way to control the size of those files. Not control the size of them, but control them getting deleted. They'll default to a certain size, which you can change. And you know, if you're not careful, you're not monitoring, they can fill your disk. But you get a lot of data too. If you want to use binary logging, you can incorporate that into MySQL dump with master data. It's rather important that you do that because that's your point of your snapshot, so that you know where to recover from, because you're going to use the MySQL bin log command and using, I think when I talk about it here in recovery a bit more, maybe we'll talk about it later in a different slide set. When you're recovering, you recover your backup, then you use the binary logs and the bin log command to recover from a point in time, potentially to a point in time, either by position or by date and time. So it's very critical that you keep your binary logs. MySQL does not provide mirrored binary logs. The Google patch, which I'm not going to talk about, provides a level of binary logs. Using DRDB, for example, as a solution to doing mirrored binary logs, not just mirrored database, is something I've been toying with now, which is, you know, if they're that important for you and you're not using RAID. Now, when I say not using RAID, I was at a site recently where they had a master and they had a slave, and on their master, no backups. No operating system backup, no database backups. No RAID. Slave. Slave. MySQL dump 80 gigabytes of data across the network to another machine, which was then compressed, which was taking them like 15 hours. Okay? Which was like, they were going across a 100 megabit switch to start with. Anyways, it's stupid. But they had like no disk space and no backup strategy. So, you know, they were using replication as their sole backup strategy and failover. And how would you classify that? Lunacy?
Somewhere close to that.
I couldn't actually write the word lunacy, but because it would probably get rejected, but it's just don't do that. So binary logs are important for your recovery depending on how your slaves work, because we'll talk replication about slave lag and redo logs. And if you do a copy, then you just restore the files, you check to make sure your configuration is right, start for instance. If you use MySQL dump, the best way to do it is create a new instance that doesn't have any databases in it and then rerun your backup script. Because if you rerun the backup script into an existing database, you're just basically going to throw errors because it's just going to go, it doesn't automatically drop the tables and recreate them unless you specify drop tables. So it'll start trying to insert. What's that?
Dash ops.
Yeah, different options.
It does specify drop tables.
Yeah, there are a whole pile of options to MySQL dump to increase things like, I want to drop the database beforehand, I want to drop the tables, yada, yada, yada. Just sort of giving a simple solution of how to recover. The downside of doing this is that it can take a long time to recover. I did a test actually just on Tuesday, and it was really interesting. I backed up 500 megabytes of data, and it took 9 seconds. And I was really impressed because of that. And the recovery took like 1 minute 16 seconds. That just gives you an indication we're like 7 times longer to recover.
Partial queries.
Sorry?
Because that's a partial.
It has to execute every query manually. And so that's the downside of having MySQL dump on a large database. You know, your recovery time will increase.
And if you have any indexes would be much more than 7 times longer.
Yeah, so you know, if you're doing things like that, MySQL, this is the thing. This is one problem with MySQL dump. MySQL dump will give you a create table definition with the table definition and the indexes in it. You know, the old Oracle ways of designer, you know, you have your tables and then you index it separately. Like create your tables, load your data, then create your indexes. And that could make a significant improvement in performance. I don't have any figures to back that up with.
I'm assuming row-based replication also is much more efficient because it's always working off the primary key as opposed to parsing and executing the statement.
I have no idea how row-based replication works except for taking more disk space. And so therefore it's going to take longer to write, longer to transfer out the network, and probably longer to apply.
Well, it depends on the
Less
size
time
of
to
the row.
apply.
Less time to apply?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically what it does is, in row-based replication, it sends sort of a compressed image of what the row used to look like and what the row looks like now, and the primary key of the row. So
Okay,
the
cool.
row ID.
So will it fail if the row, the value it looked like is not the same?
Sorry?
You said it sends the value of the row before and after.
Yeah.
Well, it uses the board to check to go, is that what it is? And so if it's not that, it doesn't update it. What's the before for?
Effectively, yeah. I'm pretty sure it checks currently, but nonetheless, it does get sent.
We're talking about how to get it while I'm talking about it.
For integrity checking, because you don't want to apply the change necessarily if the old row doesn't look the same, because it implies something is probably wrong.
So
the row-based replication is stuck in the bin log, just like the statement.
Yeah.
yeah, so
Now, are there any tools to good or bad, or probably as a result of bad schema design on our part, in setting up new instances and recovering from a full backup that we have? We've been writing Perl scripts to strip stuff out that don't need to be replicated in the new site that we're building. Whether it was just have this continually updated, and we don't need every single one of those because it's never used for purposes of another query.
So if you're applying, if it's a replication slave, there are a lot more options in the slave that you can specify. I'll give you that list because I've got it right here in Scalator.
So you're basically
Um,
you're not replicating everything from the master.
Partial replication.
Well, for replication purposes, we have, we're ignoring certain things just for the purpose of from our full backup, creating a new instance.
Yeah, there are two things that you want to do. This is one option. So on the master, you can specify what tables you want to back up, what database you want to back up or ignore. But on the slave, you can replicate or ignore a lot more information. But it's still binary logged on the master, put on disk, sent across the network, but you can ignore it. The other option is use black hole.
What's wild?
You can put wildcard strings into the name. So you can say, tables that go cust star, ignore custom tables. So whatever.
So you just start with the accepted and basically ignore it.
That's almost as funny as that question I got asked last week, how do I log into user? Because I went create, I'll actually type this one in, because this is funny. They did create user Bob at localhost at localhost. So they actually put, the username is actually Bob at localhost, not at symbol username. Anyway, side story. So for replication, the simple solution is these options or black hole, because black hole doesn't store any data.
I think you actually.
I was talking more for not for replication purposes, but just reapplying or running through the MySQL dump. That
MySQL dump or binary logs? Which one?
MySQL bin log, the result of that,
Oh, the bin log.
or what we've done for our backup. So we have our enormous SQL file of the full database, and actually that one just has the database in it. So that's applying the bin logs.
Yeah, you have to apply them and basically filter out what you don't want manually, which is what I said you're going to do.
I didn't know if there were any tools already built.
Someone will have written something in the community. They share it's another question. You should share yours.
Yeah. Mine's pretty ugly.
That's good. Ugly is good. It means there's room for improvement.
Can you do parallel recovery in master and slave? And then just break up?
Well, let's talk about that in replication, because that's an answer that, the quick answer is no, but
Yeah,
so
can you, is this not possible to do,
anything's possible.
set up the binary log without a restart?
No, you have to restart, yeah.
Shut down your anything's possible.
You could actually do that functionality if you wanted through like MySQL proxy.
Not supported, right? That's
Yeah, well, proxy can do a lot of things. I don't think when we start binary logging dynamically, but put it through
That behavior is undefined.
So I just want to finish on this note because I talked about this the other day to Oracle people, and it confused them because MySQL data, binary log. The binary log is like an archive redo log. It's every statement transaction. But if you use InnoDB, you have data plus redo logs. Okay, so you've got archive, which are like, redo logs, and then you've got the Verilog, which is like archive redo logs. They're two different logs, so in theory, a transaction will exist in both if you're using InnoDB. So in a database recovery, in a database restore, backup and restore, you would use your backup strategy plus the MySQL binary logs to replay those transactions. In a crash recovery, which means MySQL has crashed, when it will restore, it will start with the internal data and then it will replay the redo logs and then the undo logs. It won't actually use the binary logs. So I'm not going to go into detail, but just be aware when we start talking about this from an Oracle perspective, people can get lost in the terminology. So they are different. Redo logs and binary logs are different. And like when you're writing transactions, series are actually written in both places. However, there's no way within InnoDB you can actually use redo logs. Control.
Yeah, you can actually put that up as one of the backup strategies. Is start your server with a cold backup in the beginning, and then continuously just store your archive logs until the next cold backup.
Well, that's part of actually doing. Well, it's built into actually doing exactly that. So you're doing your backup, which is what you've got from any meter. Say you're doing, some type of, InnoDB based backup like this. Then you actually have to have the binary logs enabled, and you have to make sure you back up your binary logs. Copy the binary logs, because that's your recovery process.
Right.
But what you're saying is you want to do one cold backup maybe a week, and then do incremental redo binary logs. Oracle term. You want to keep the binary logs for like the whole week or something, for like incrementals.
And then maybe stand up a separate server where you're just replaying them into it. Keep it current.
Yeah,
you always do cold backups of that later.
Let's talk about replication. That's replication. There's no need to. There's no benefit in manually reproducing it.
Well, it's not an real pain. In that case, you're guaranteed all the data is being managed.
Right.
There's never a guarantee. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish this and talk about Andrew. Andrew's going to raise his question and ask a question, but I'm going to prelude him to say Andrew has a situation, and we want to talk about the situation specifically to see what's the best approach to follow, and what you had told me, which I sort of got secondhand, was actually the case. So do you want to describe the problem that you had?
Sure. Well, no, actually, I don't want to describe.
Okay. It's a database and this got built up. Okay.
Just let's not pass him.
He's not the system administrator. He's the Java developer. Okay. Sorry.
So let's say that someone put the production query log on.
Well, you should say why did this build up?
The disk filled up. Right.
This filled up.
Obviously,
I don't need
when
tables.
the disk fills up, you can't write to the bin log anymore, and then that breaks your application.
And it breaks your production database.
What's that?
And it breaks your production database.
Yeah, no more connections can be made to production database.
It's even more fun if your bin log is on something like /var, and then it messes up your whole operating system.
So the question is that
so now you've got the problem of you crashed your database because your bin log can't be written to anymore.
So this is where
I just work under the assumption that like from the time that disk became full, everything is just corrupt. Because one way or another, I gotta stop the process so that I can
reclaim disk space.
Reclaim the drive. So I can stop the process so that I can delete the file. That's the query file.
Can you get rid of whole? You're saying one single binary log file?
No. What happened? You should have told them what you did.
I mean, that's
okay.
What someone may have done.
Some other person allegedly turned on the general query log, which was one file which filled the disk. Okay, and then the response was it corrupted the database. And I don't find that to be the case because the worst that would happen is that the redo log got written, the one statement that failed to fill up the binary log didn't get written, so your database is not actually corrupt.
The database wasn't corrupt, you just lost transactions.
You lost transactions. And so the process that you applied was shut down the database, free up disk space, start up the server, but then you had to rebuild your slaves manually because you said the data was lost.
then to stop the whole thing, clear up the disk space, resolve the issue, change the configs, it didn't happen again. And then do a MySQL dump of all databases with master data flag.
Can I mention not to run your MySQL DB2
Well, yeah, not running this
doesn't
route,
run as root.
not running this route, you actually have
I'm
to.
running it as a MySQL
Yeah.
user.
So I suspect there's probably two things.
And
is
some
that,
things okay.
here's the other thing too.
Your
If you
disk
get a
wasn't
dedicated-
actually full.
If you get a dedicated machine from a hosting provider, even like I'm sorry, Rackspace, even a MySQL certified, hosting provider, and they give you a dedicated server, what do? They stick everything in slash. And so that's just as bad as not running as root. Because they're actually, if you have MySQL running in the same file system as root, they also have temp out there. You fill the file system, your operating system is cactus. But if you have it in a separate partition, if MySQL fills up, it's not going to crash your system or your operating system. It's just going to mess up MySQL.
One good thing for this situation, DB dev 0 and make a file, just an MP file, that's like 5% of your file system, and just leave it sitting. And if ever you get into a situation where your disk is filled up, and you need to free up disk space temporarily just to let it spool the rest of it down so you can recover, just go and blow away that file and you'll free up 5% of your disk, however much you set aside. And then once you're recovered, you go, and you create that file again. It's a little discipline.
Alternatively, you could monitor your systems.
Alternatively, never let your disk fill up.
Right, alternatively, monitor your file system so when your disk gets filled, you get paged and something happens, because that's what you should be doing anyway, because it could be any random log file going away with the system, not MySQL.
So if you're curious about the dev 0 idea, this is what you do. You can do different things, but you can sort of like do a DD, create an in file, which is dev 0, and then create an out file. This is going to create a 3.2 gigabyte file. This is like the test throughput. But that's the syntax that you would do, just to pre-create a dummy file of 5 gig or 10 gig, just to get you around the problem temporarily, if you're working with like root
Just to
files.
spool out whatever it was blocked on.
Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, that combined with other strategies, it may be quite a practical strategy.
For that particular case, if you've run out of disk space because MySQL has written too much to the disk, you could also use tune2fs to temporarily lower the reserve space.
If it's not already set to 0%.
Yeah.
Correct. But if you were planning ahead enough to do this trick, then you could have planned ahead enough to not use tune2fs in the first place.
So I think the other thing that Andy wanted to bring up was, because of this problem, he had to then retask all his slaves. And that was one of the biggest problems, because not only do you have to restart get your master database right, you had to back it up, then you have to rebuild the slave because transactions are lost. So I think when we start talking about replication more, we'll go through strategies of making sure, when you can restart a slave versus when you can't restart a slave. Hopefully Baron will come tomorrow, another time of things where he'll talk about his tips of sort of saying, is the database the same in the master and slave? And then his idea of like syncing them up. So he had some tools in the MySQL toolkit about that. But I'm over time, very over time, so I'm going to stop because Frank is going to go out for a smoke, but he can't. Thank you, but no need to clap, we're all part of the community here, so everyone, just thank everybody, thank each other.